Back here with Bobby Pierce, set 2. Bobby, thanks for taking the time again.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about well, let's first go with James Moody and Roy Brooks, and how did you get with them, and why don't you share a little bit of perseverance on that?
Well, Moody had, I think this last stretch, he had done 9 years with Diz, and he wanted to do something different. So he came through Chicago, and I was with the house band, and he said, "Say, Bobby, I want to start a new group. Are you interested?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Where? How did he get a hold of you? Where were you? You were in New York?
I was on the job in Chicago. I was living in Chicago. I stayed there about 7 years. And I was playing at this club where the guy would put me, he started calling in jazz names, and he would put me with him on the weekends. And I think James was the last one to come through. So he told me he wanted to start a band. I gave my phone number and stuff. And 2 days later, he said, "How's Roy Brooks for the drummer?" And I'm like, fine. Then he calls me and tells me about Eddie Jefferson. Whoa. Okay.
He wanted to do something real different from Diz.
Yeah, he wanted to do different tunes.
I mean, yeah, Eddie just bringing the vocals in there.
Yeah.
Holy
that guy
mackerel!
Was unbelievable.
He was a high wire act. Anyway, your mind was blowing with that band.
Yes, I was. That was a most professional band.
What made it professional?
The way they deported themselves, the way they went about the music, the expertise they had. And if Moody wanted to do a new tune, he would just bring it in, give me the music, and we work it into what we were doing.
When you were when that band, take us through the process of the evolution. You get the players in place, and then how long did you rehearse for before you went on a road trip? And then how long was that road trip?
We didn't rehearse at all.
Okay, good. No worries.
Next thing I knew, I was on a train to St. Louis, East St. Louis, a place called Helen's Black Eagle Lounge. And he brought out a new tune that night. He said, "You want to try it?" And I said, "Sure." And he finished the tune, and he went into this long thing. I mean, he must have played the whole thesaurus of scales. And he got to the last note, and he said, "Black." Everybody fell out, and he reaches over and whispers in my ears, "Always make a mistake, they'll love you for it." That man was uncanny. But I think he picked up a lot of that humor from Diz.
He sure did.
Because him and Eddie would do Moody's Mood, and Moody would grab a scarf from a table or a tablecloth and sing the center.
"What is all this love? What is all this talk about loving me, my dear? I am ready for you."
People would just be in hysterics. But there was a seriousness there.
Right.
I was with the group for about 2 weeks, and one day Moody I lived down the street from him in Jersey. I moved to New York, and I moved to Jersey. And he said, "Bobby, what's wrong?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You were really playing when I hired you. What's happening?" I said, "Well, when I look at the greatness of all you cats, man, I'm just trying to stay off toes." He said, "BS. You're here because you can play. And starting tomorrow night, when you come out, wherever you think that it is, I want you to go for it and put your foot in cat's tails." I did, and Roy Brooks made the comment. He said, "What got into Bobby tonight?" And the group just became closer and closer and closer. And he was like a father to me, too. He knew about adoption, and he knew the workings of the mind pertaining to adoption, because he was adopted himself. And he would just say things to me that he just knew he had a kid on his hands. He was trying to help me grow up, you know. I thought it was really nice of him.
But it was also a common theme already, only a day and a half into this, a day and a quarter into this trip, is the idea of honesty.
Mhm.
He could have let you, I mean, he could have let you keep going down the path that you were going down, but he knew there was something greater. And and you knew, maybe you thought you were playing okay, but
I was kind of afraid of them. I mean, because
Right,
they
I mean, it
were
was
all
a-
such legends, you know.
but it was, again, it was your admission that you were in, that there was a little bit of awestruck.
Mhm.
And this idea to say, I am not comfortable yet. I want to be more comfortable. I want to do this. And then for him to just say, that's the leadership. And that's what you talked about on the porch. You know, one of the first things you said, the generations that have preceded us have always been, they were strong.
Yeah, they were very strong.
But the strength was not in like bravado or ego. It was picking. It was saying, "Dude, I'm not going to let Bobby twist in the wind.
Yeah,
I'm going to raise his level to make him even better." That's the team construct.
You told me, you said, just play like you did in Chicago. Let it go. And I did. I began to have fun, you know. And through about a year of association, I began to see the guys as just guys,
Right.
some other guys.
Less in awe
We're in
and
this
more
together.
peers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're more of we became a family.
Did you?
We actually cared about each other.
Yeah. Well, no. That's what I wanted to. Did you get to a certain point where you knew that you knew that other guys in the band were having a difficult time, maybe, and then you would go and provide mentorship to them, or not mentoring, but you know, stability as a family would.
Yeah, we did all that. I don't remember any specific incidences, but sometimes Roy would feel like talking. If nothing else, I would listen to what he had to say, you know.
Talk a little bit about Roy Brooks and what he meant to you.
He was a fascinating character. Roy was different.
Yeah, I want to know because I'm still. He's another guy. He's another cat I want to track down.
Yeah.
And we talked about that, but maybe you can articulate a little bit for me because
He was a perfectionist and just as smooth as they come, you know. The man could play his drums. He was virtually a doctor at it. And he was trying different things, like he had a saw, a Stradivarius saw, that he would play solos on doing his drum solo. And he had tubes, 3 or 4 of them stuck into his mouth that went into the drums, where he could change the pitches of them as he played. He was a really creative guy.
it sounds to me that instead of getting bored, he just continued to create.
That's what he did. That's what he did. I was really surprised when I found out he was back in Detroit, but I'm sure he's groovy wherever he is, you know. But he had done some suffering, you know, and Horace Silvers had taken care of him during that period.
It seemed like the James Moody's and the Dizzy Gillespies and the Horace Silvers were more than band leaders. They were fathers.
Yeah,
Fathers to the younger players, to the younger generation that was coming up.
that's right. Sonny Stitt was like that. He didn't say much. He just showed by example. And he was a gargantuous taskmaster. I mean, when you came to play. And that was from note 1. It was, I was kind of afraid of New York audiences, and the first time I went there, I was laying back again. And finally I said, this is dumb, and started really playing. And that Billy was kind of coaching me in things. Sonny would say some things once in a while. And I think during that year we had one rehearsal. But a lot of times he would just start playing and say, "You'll hear it."
Dude, this is
What a way to learn.
oh, just throw you out there.
You heard it.
Now you were playing organ, right? Because
Yeah.
that was a soul jazz years. I mean, that was
Yeah,
you had the
yeah.
drums and the horn and the organ.
He would lay it out there. I mean, the way he laid it out, it was so complete that you would almost have to be deaf not to hear it. And if you got hung on one particular change, he would kind of look at you out of the corner of his eye when he came through that passage again and spell that change out. And I got it. And we'd play it from then on. But when I say a taskmaster, the energy that man had was awesome. One time we were at the Blue Note, and I guess we had played All the Things You Are. And we were standing outside, and some guy came up and said, "Man, that little cat can play." So he said, yeah, he can play. And he said, "And All the Things You Are." And he said, "Yeah, he plays the S out of that, doesn't he?" And he said, "They get smarter and smarter, but weaker and weaker." And when I heard Don Patterson, I could relate to what he was saying. Something about the strength of those guys was, you kind of have to build up to that. It doesn't happen right away. When I first went with that group, Billy James told me, he said, "Bobby, the longer you stay here, the more we go out to jam sessions, you'll begin to see that the guys can't play with you." And then we went out to a session, and after about 3 or 4 months, and all the guys were dropping behind while we were playing. He said, "You see what I mean?" And I said, "Yeah." And I realized I'd been thrown into an echelon of music that was totally different.
Right.
And one of the things, when I asked a guy about why would Sonny Stitt want me, he said, "Watch what he does on the road. Imitate him, you'll be safe." And he said, "He's a time master. Now you will begin to know true time." And I think that was a missing element, when we would go to sessions at different places. The guys didn't really play true time. They would either slow a tune down or speed it up, but for them to just lock in, play it right where it is, and don't move it. Sonny had that ability.
When you talk about his the energy level, but you guys didn't rehearse a lot, but he would walk in and he led by example. So it was more through physical action. It was just through torrents and torrents of notes.
Yeah, it was like studying a book.
And you're sitting there saying, "Holy cow, this solo's been going on for,
Never repeating himself.
never no repetition."
Oh, maybe he'll play something he played last night, because we had basically arrangements,
That was a question that was the first question I wrote out on my paper last night. I said, I want to ask Bobby, how much stuff that you played did you actually ever hear back in that time?
Did I ever hear that was bad?
No. Just in general. None of it was recorded. So you never really heard what you played.
No, somebody told me that there was an album out with myself and Sonny Stitt. If so, someone did it under the table.
What I'm getting at is that today you go to Berkeley, you go to a school like that, and there are certain models. They say you want to sound like this person. Well, here's this type of. This is what you want to study. With you guys, you could be out there playing endless shows. Maybe somebody was running a soundboard or some kind of sound out of it, but nobody was taping it. So it wasn't like you could put on your Walkman with a cassette or listen to. So that's what I'm saying is the development. Talk a little bit about how the development of your own sound.
A lot of the ideas I had came from Rudy,
Rudolph.
Rudolph.
Unbelievable.
And he taught me enough to be able to play with a modernist of today's music, or to play the traditional music. And Billy had a way of talking about things. Like, this is something that him and Don Patterson went through one time, and I actually saw the write-up on the wall of the Hungry Eye in Chicago one time. It said that when they get to turnarounds at the end of a course, the music would slow down. And then when they tear into the new course, it would pick back up again. So they began to discuss it. And as it turns out, I discovered through that I'm doing that too. So he would teach me how to bear down on the turnarounds. Even though it's like you're going up to a higher echelon, you don't drop what you have now. You keep it at that level, and then you take it to a more intense level. We would actually talk about things like that. And that was helpful because I'd never been around musicians who would discuss that. I would talk about it. The only thing I remember was I was playing a house band gig in Columbus, and the Crusaders came through. Buddy Montgomery was playing.
Monk Montgomery?
Monk was playing bass.
Electric bass.
And sticks, and my drummer was late. Oh, he was playing upright that night.
Oh, was he? Okay.
And
I only think of him because he was the first one to kind of play the electric bass, you know.
They said, let's play with him for a while. And it was, whew.
Sticks.
Yeah.
The
And
sticks,
I mean,
yeah.
it was like they were just right on my tail, running. And I hadn't experienced that yet. You know, well, with Sonny, I got a bunch of it. Because he didn't slow up or down. He just, when he tore into a tune. And it was funny because one night he came to me and he said, I just don't feel like it tonight. Can you tell him? I said, no. He said, well, I don't really feel like it tonight. I'm having a hard time getting it out. And I said, okay. Then about 4 months later, I went to him and I said, Sonny, you're not feeling it tonight, huh? Oh, you can tell now. I said, yeah, I can tell. But at his, I don't want to call it worse, but at his lowest level of playing, people should want to play that much in their whole lifetime. I mean, his laying back was like...
Yeah. It was my output for a year and a half.
Right. And he was a master of that thing. Oh, God. He was probably the hardest taskmaster, especially when it came to tempos and whatnot, and the way he spelled out changes. Jug was different. Gene Emmons,
Yeah.
he was a master of what I call the groove. He would just play and play and play until he'd be on the organ like, and I'd say, are you all right? Yeah, I'm okay. But he would just play his heart out. He had a trick when we went in the studio. We did a 2-album thing. He took a wash rag and tied it around the microphone, put rubber bands on it, and dropped it down in the bell of the horn and recorded. He's like, Bobby, don't you tell nobody about this. I said, okay. But the thing I began to realize was that when he would go to clubs, he was reproducing that sound, that hard blowing sound that he got from the saxophone with the mic and the bell. He would reproduce that on the spot, and it called for hard work. I can remember the drummer going into nosebleeds who played so hard one night.
What you're talking on is a serious reliance on memory, ear and memory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as opposed to, the idea that everything now is recorded.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can go back and listen and cultivate, but yet I think it strips away some of the originality in the sound.
Yeah.
If new cats are coming on the scene and if you had, I guess that what I'm saying is if there's a lot of supply and not a lot of demand in jazz now.
That's true.
And Mike Longo, the piano player, said that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're cranking out thousands of students every year, because they don't know. The people don't know how to market jazz anymore, and there's just not the. With Moody and Roy Brooks and those guys, you didn't play for the door. You got cuts. You got and that you're saying you got a cut.
Oh yeah.
It was understood.
You knew everything.
It was done. Dizzy was the same way with Mike.
Did.
I mean, you got your money. You were paid for what you did.
If they were going out for $3,000, that was the deal. If they were going out for $5,000 or $10,000, that was the deal. That was it.
Right.
It's understood. It was all contracted.
Right. And it seemed to me there was an infrastructure built through taskmasters like Sonny,
Mm-hmm.
characters and musicians like Dizzy,
Mm-hmm.
Moody.
Yeah.
They set the tone.
Mm-hmm.
And they let people know flat out. And what it comes down to is communication.
Mm-hmm.
And now in this age of recluse and digital and YouTube, where you can just put yourself out there, you're not talking to real human beings. So when you actually are put into a group setting, or when you're actually, you don't have those communication skills. You guys had real dialogue about stuff.
Yeah, we did.
Billy, Don, you guys were
Yeah, we
talking.
talked about
you
it.
were talking. And on a sociological level, we stopped talking as a society. We stopped listening.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Everybody thinks they're right. Right?
Yeah.
Everybody has their opinion, and therefore that has to be the right opinion. Not to say, I don't know. We go back to the same theme with Rudolph Johnson and Sonny, when you openly said, I don't know. That's the strength to knowing.
It makes possible things.
Ah.
But until I say that about a thing, I just don't know. And I'm not going to know. Most likely. Unless a life situation presents it to me. But that's a fat chance. You know what I'm saying?
Well, speaking of life settings,
But we'll be playing today. I'm sorry.
no, I wanted to ask you about something that you did that was honored actually at the White House.
This was the Golden Phonics Award about President
Oh, Golden Phoenix, yeah.
Peace in the Streets.
Yeah, that was quite a project.
Now, so how much did was it Gene Shaw, the trumpet player in Chicago? Okay. Now he used to. Here's what I'm getting at. Okay, I'm gonna lead you through this. He had these spiritual bands, that he.
Yeah.
And he was able to keep kids directed, keep channel their energies towards music instead of them falling off.
Right.
Okay. Did that have? Was that any in the back of your mind? Did that tie into some of that to that whole movement of keeping the kids?
He was a Sufi, and he incorporated that a lot into his bands. He would say the purpose of this is not music; it's Sufism.
Wow.
And that's something eventually I had to drop away from. I began to start feeling wacko, and I went to a psychiatrist and told him my strange feelings about it. And I began to pull away. It was almost a bunch of people in the house, a big, huge house.
It was like a fanatic,
Yeah.
kind of a cult kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And it's legitimate. It comes from the East. But what the psychiatrist told me, you're fine. The very fact that you came here and the very fact that you are able to express this in the way you're expressing it, you're fine. But you must know that 80% of Americans who try to embrace this religion have had nervous breakdowns. It is so contrary to the Western way of thinking. And it was different. It was really different. You didn't care about anything. You didn't possess anything or worry about possessions.
When you say you didn't care about anything, you mean literally, and like children, family. No, I mean,
Oh, yeah, people, yeah.
but materialistic stuff was
Yeah.
by the wayside.
Yeah, you just didn't care. And they were I did learn something from it. I was selling suits and going to college, carrying full load, and playing all these nights. And they showed me the folly in that. They said you're building a lot of little anthills, but you'll never build a mountain. You know what I mean? It's limited. That began to bother me a lot, and I began to back away from them.
Oh, I see.
But ultimately, I did pick one, and it was the music. Okay, I'll go with that. The way this came about was a cousin was a psychologist at the 75th Street School here in California. A guy had sent her a tape of some songs that he and his class had collaborated on about peace in the streets. And she came to me and asked me, could you build it up? So with synthesizer, I built it up to strings, horns, all kinds of stuff. So it was like a major track. And then went over to school about 4 days a week, 5 days a week, rehearsed the children with it, rehearsed them and rehearsed them and rehearsed them. And then we went into the studio, and it was the cutest thing, because I'd have this little tot. I'd pick her up to the microphone. I'm scared. I said, no, you just go ahead and say it. And we put this thing together. I don't know how Clinton got into it, but he got, when they were going to receive the Phoenix Award, the girl, the cousin, this school psychologist, her mother was killed on the way to it. So it was kind of sad. But
Wait, I'm saying sorry.
on the way to the Golden Phoenix Award in D.C.
It's tragic.
Yeah. But I felt so alive during that period. And I just fell in love with those little children. You know, they put such heart into it. It was nice. Mm. And it was something good on my mind. Then they did another thing that someone had written, and the times were just changing constantly. 4/4 bars, 6/4 bars. The time just kept changing, and it took me a month to put that thing together.
But you were having a blast.
Huh?
You were having a blast.
Yeah. Because they called me, the office called me, and they said, can you do this? I said, sure. You must be some kind of genius. I said, no, I can do it. Just send it to me.
I'm Bobby Pierce.
Mm-hmm. And it worked out beautifully. It was another award show. The guy that used to play Chester on Gunsmoke, he was a part of that one. What was Chester's real name as an actor? Yes, Master Denny.
Yeah, I mean,
he runs track. Actually, he was a track star.
What you were? You also were you acting as well at some point? Were you on Baywatch?
No.
Okay.
No,
I was like, I don't remember you with David Hasselhoff over there.
No, I had my one bright moment when they were doing the. What was it? The one with Michael Jackson's brother and the comedian. Was it Nutty Professor? Mm-hmm.
Was it Eddie Murphy?
Yeah, Eddie Murphy. And they brought in, the agent told me, he said, they're going to film you tomorrow. I said, what? He said, yeah, you. So I come in and they set up all these tracks and stuff, and they take pictures of me from all kinds of angles. And the only thing I got out of it when I saw the movie was one scene where I was going, huh?
How did you film debut?
4 or 5 hours.
That was. You've had many more brighter moments than that.
Yeah. I did start getting into. It's a thing called second line musician, where you go in and you're fed through little transmitters the music, and you imitate it. And then the really good ones, I would go in and actually play the music. one strange call. I was getting ready to leave for a concert, and they said, could you just morning before you catch your plane, we need someone to do Chopin's hands. I'm like, what?
What'd you say?
Yeah, if you could just come and do the Chopin's hands thing for us,
Yeah.
we'll sync it up, and it'll look perfect. And I was all dressed and everything, ready to go, and they come back and said, oh, the pianist showed up. And I said, okay. Yeah. But I did get a chance to write for some movies. One came in first in Cannes, and it was a thing called Balthazar's Funeral. That was nice, and I really came alive for it. I had to synthesize the Last Requiem,
Yeah.
which was a job. Because they gave me the score. The lady gave me the score, and she gave me her favorite rendition of it with some Philharmonic. And it took about a month putting it together. And it was all sequenced, but it came out fine. So I'm sitting there in a little showing room, and I see my name come up on the screen. I'm like, oh, gee. Okay. Whoops, that's that.
I mean, I want Bobby Pierce to keep coming alive.
Yeah.
That's I mean, it's almost like on a piece of vinyl. You know, the tracks. You know, you know, you have each track has its own stopping point, but then when the track starts, you come alive again.
Yeah.
You know, it's 5 tracks on one side, 5 tracks on the other side, and you know, whatever I can do, you know, whether it's through this show or, you know, being involved with kids, you know, giving back. I mean, you know, as long as you're still, you know, you have your capacities, your brain, and your abilities.
Still up for it, always. And a place like California, almost anything. I came out here because I wanted to get in deeper waters.
Right.
And did wind up doing a thing called Paris in Search of a Dream. That was fascinating. Stuff like that, I'd really like to get into more, but it can be cliquish. You know what I mean? It can be a tight-knit thing, because I found out that a lot of the producers of the shows, they send their kids to schools to learn this stuff, and it stays in the family a lot. It's just the way it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to me, it's kind of unusual, but I do come alive when it happens, because it just, I've always been the type of musician, if you give me something to do, I'll just come alive and do it. But something can open up the creative juices that way. And sometimes I'm amazed just watching it happen. Like, I didn't know I could do that. And most of us don't know we can do the things we can do until life gives us a reason to try them. And sometimes we're pleasantly surprised. Oh, wow, I can do that. You know.
Yeah.
Now, if I go back to the spiritual side of it, I do nothing. It just happened.
Right.
I try to raise to the occasion. But there are deep waters out here. And like I say, it's a kind of a clandestine thing. You don't just leap into that. I've not found it that easy, you know. Made recordings with other folks. Finally made one, or the one you were talking about. But I still try to practice and grow.
The tribute to Gene Harris. Talk about how that collaboration came about, because those guys were part of the Three Sounds. You know, they were with.
Yeah, they were.
They were, and then did they come to you and say, or did you know Gene? Were you able to connect with on that level?
I was playing in Indianapolis, Indiana one time, and they were playing at the 19th hole. I was at Sunny Theater. With
the 19th hole. Oh, love that.
I was with Moody at another club, And Roy and I went by to see them that one afternoon on the matinee, and I met Gene then. Um, they they seemed happy, you know. And then when the idea came up of doing this, Henry broached me about it, and we selected some tunes and decided what we were going to do with them, and just went in and did it. It was almost like a straight through thing. We did it all in one afternoon and just went from tune to tune, but we had discussed them all. And Henry and I had been playing for about a year at the Mission Inn, so we were on the same page. Carl came in and just did it. I felt really good about it. Good musicians.
I just, I wanted you to, in our final moments here, talk about, on Thursday night. I mean, what do you hope to get out of it? What do you hope to? How do you want to grow or evolve from it? Or do you have any expectations?
My biggest thing about that is hoping to play well. That's it. That's about it. Just hoping to play well. Because I can be so critical of myself and make me want to jump out of the basement window. I can be pretty critical of myself.
Sure.
And maybe too much so sometimes. I had a friend, Mark Warren, he pulled me into some movie work and TV writing, and he used to tell me that all the time, you're so hard on yourself. But I don't know that I could change that. You know what I mean? And sometimes I'll look at my playing and say, after all of these years, that's the best you can do? It's like, oh God. I don't know how to explain that. But it's always wanting to improve, wanting to be better.
You have to find a way to keep your expectations high without punishing yourself.
Yeah. Now, when I recorded that first album for Buddha Records, I didn't listen to it for 25 or 30 years.
Wichita Lineman was on that.
Mm-hmm. And I went back one day and put it on, and I started to cry. I said, that little guy could play. Mm-hmm. Oh, he was wonderful. But I didn't see it as that then. You know what I mean? And maybe all of this is for good, because if one gets too complacent, I think it's all over. Me, anyway. You know what I mean?
I like where your head's at.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to make sure, like you said, I don't know who it was, but they'd keep feeding your brain.
Yeah.
Keep giving you, who was that, Don or Billy? Somebody used to just, Sonny, they'd give you stuff.
Oh, Rudolph.
Rudolph.
Yeah.
And
So I keep trying to do that with it too. And don't listen to myself too much. Listening to others.
Actually, it's funny. The liner notes in here says, "This is Bobby Pierce's second album and a great improvement on the first."
Oh, did.
Did
they say that?
Yeah, they did. But you know what? I wouldn't use the word improve. I would use the word evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal of any artist, is to do what they're doing and do it better the next time.
I was evolving into something else. That wasn't exactly that label's forte. You know what I'm saying? And they conceded that to me.
Yeah, how did you even get how did you get connected with them?
Moody recommended me for that label.
Okay.
We were playing at the Zambezi in Maryland, on the Maryland side in D.C. And Moody was on the phone with someone from New York, and he said, Bobby, play that thing you wrote again. I did. And he said, yeah, he's good. So later I'm in Chicago, and I run up and down the road for 9 years, and I'm exhausted. And I was telling the drummer, I said, maybe I'm just beating my head against the wall. I think I'm going to hang it up. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, man, I just don't seem to be getting anywhere. So he came up to me with another, the drummer did, with the horn player, and said, "There's a guy in the phone booth that says he's from New York, from Buddha Records, and he wants to record you." And I'm like, "Oh man, get out of here." So they both carried me over to the phone booth, and it was Joe Fields from New York. And he said, "Well, we'll send you a contract." And I said, "Okay." But when I read the album label, it said James Moody had recommended me for that. And I kind of instinctively knew it. I told him, I said, "Moody, thanks, man, you did that." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You got me on that label." "I don't know what you're talking about." He did. He did.
That was Talk with the Spirits.
It was a thrilling experience to walk in there. And, whew. When I saw the names sitting there, I was like, "Oh my God."
It was almost like they didn't want to tell you in advance because maybe you'd freak out.
Maybe so.
And then you just walk in,
Do it.
right?
Yeah,
just do it.
And they have a way of recording. Moody, Eddie Harris has said this to me once before. He said, he was talking to somebody else, and he pointed to me at organ. He said they could take a guy like him and start putting him with names and make him a name.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what they do. And they begin to record you with the heavies.
That's what I love about jazz.
And then
And that's what I love about the generation that you grew up and you were always on the young side of the elders. And
Yeah.
and they were always saying, we need a new generation. Bobby's going to be part of that, so let's put him with guys, surround him with guys. And there were producers like that too.
It kind of blows me away. At that point, I was about 23 or 24 years old when that stuff was happening, you know. But Eddie Harris said something to me I'll probably never forget. And it was shortly before he died. He said, "Bobby, people are always going to tell you you're great. But deep down inside, you know what you meant to play. Listen to that." And I think about that pretty often, what he said. It's true. People just come up and raving, "Oh man, you play like this and you play like that." And I'm kind of warding it off, you know. It's like, I know what I meant to play and I didn't play that. You know? That's, a lot of it is mirage. A lot of it is mirage. And once in a while to go out and do a concert now and people are just raving and stuff, I find it hard to take it seriously. You know what I mean? It's like, thank you, I really appreciate it, but I really wish I could have done that better.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up, we came across a project called The Many Loves of a Man.
Yeah.
Is that something, a work in progress?
No, my wife and I started a label, and it's funny.
Doodlin?
No, it was a BP label,
Okay.
and I had no idea what I was doing. I put 20 tunes on there, and they're from all genres. They're all different, really different.
Wow.
And I went in all directions I wanted to go: strings, piano, vocal, organ. I'll lay one of them on you. It's kind of funny. I mean, but in listening to it, I came down to just who are you anyway? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, but you were...
All of those things?
Yeah, you're all of that.
I hope so. Yeah, it's some funny stuff on there. I even had one called Dining with Leroy. He goes into this restaurant and he orders a tremendous amount of food. And he comes back and asks for a little thing of hot sauce and if they're going to be open, because he was having dinner with some friends and he wanted to drop by later and eat again. The kids like that one.
Hey, I need to talk. Did you guys, like, on the road with Billy or Sonny, you know, did you guys play a lot of cards after the shows? Like, what did you do to come down? How did you come? I mean, aside from, you know, what was the camaraderie like on the road after the gigs? Did you guys go your separate ways? Did you?
Sonny pretty much went his separate way, and Billy and I would hang out sometimes. Not a lot, but I drank a lot. Thank God I'm not doing that anymore.
No.
I'm putting this guy to sleep.
But I'm looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to hearing you play what you mean on Thursday.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna come and. I'll probably tell you everything was. I'll probably tell you that was great. That was great. But you'll know what you meant to play.
I'll know what I meant.
Yeah. But thank you, brother.
Thank you.
No, right now.
It's great talking with you.
Thank you. I hope that wasn't a ring down.